Welcome to the Live and Invest Overseas podcast. Please visit us at liveandinvestoverseas.com/podcast for more information on living better and retiring well overseas. Hello, I'm Kathleen Petticord.
And I'm Leif Simon.
Welcome to a new edition of our podcast from Live and Invest Overseas. Leif and I today are going to field questions. I should say Leif is going to field questions. Leif is known among the Live and Invest Overseas staff as the guy who can answer any question. So today we're starting part one of a two-part series we're calling Ask Leif Anything. So I've collected a bunch of questions on all kinds of topics. Let's see if we can stump Leif with any one of them. He doesn't know these in advance, so fair enough if you can't answer one, but I'll be surprised if you can't. We'll just dive in. Marco B. is asking, I was wondering if you will present any solutions for non-U.S. investors at your conference in September. Will you talk about investments suited for European investors, both legally and practically? And I guess he's referring to our Retire Overseas virtual conference, which takes place later this month.
Right. And so technically speaking, legally and practically, there's no difference for Europeans versus Americans versus Canadians. I know Canadians get upset because they think all we do is talk to Americans. So that's the bulk of our readership. Sorry about that. But there's no difference in investing for Canadians, Americans, Europeans, and what we talk about. If a country has, the one country that comes to mind that might make a difference is Croatia. If you're buying property in Croatia, your country has to allow Croatians to own property there. And getting that documentation for Americans is actually complicated because it has to come from the Secretary of State of the state that you live in. But there's a way around that by just holding through a Croatian corporation. And in fact, then for Europeans, it's much easier for you to buy in Croatia. So a few niche things like that might be different, but otherwise it can come down to holding structures. Mm-hmm. So Americans should use an LLC for passive income producing assets overseas. Canadians shouldn't use an LLC because that causes tax issues for them. A corporation is what Canadians should use, and Americans using a corporation will have tax issues. So that's the one key tax difference between Canadians and Americans in how to hold property overseas. But otherwise, there's no difference.
Currency is a consideration. You know, if your base currency isn't the dollar,
right? And so, right, if you're in the Eurozone and holding euros, then investing in a place like Panama or Belize, which use the dollar, and Belize is pegged to the dollar, but effectively it uses the dollar. You're diversifying out of the euro. For Canadians, investing in Panama and investing in the U.S. dollar instead of the Canadian dollar. But right, other than currency, it's not an issue.
Okay, great. Richard W. asks, or writes to say, I am an Irish citizen. My wife is an American citizen. We presently reside in Florida, but we would like to move to Portugal on a long-term basis. Where would you suggest that we look for long-term rentals with a maximum rental expenditure of, say, €1,600 per month?
I'd say €1,600 per month rental in Portugal, almost anywhere you'll be able to find that. It just depends on the size. In Algarve, in particular, long-term rentals, especially long-term furnished rentals, aren't easy to find because the owners there want to rent short-term. Of course, right now with COVID, they're not renting at all, so maybe they're more prone to rent to someone long-term. $1,600 would be
€1,600.
Sorry,
it's
euros.
A big budget.
Yeah, would be a lot. The apartment we had there, if it was to be rented long-term for a year-long contract furnished, I think Louise said that would have gone for like $800 or $900 a month.
Right.
So maybe $1,000 at this point.
And that was a small apartment, but in a prime location.
It was a 2-bedroom apartment, and so you're not going to find much bigger apartment-wise if you want a big villa. So that's part of your budget as well. So €1,600, you're going to be able to find something. It's just going to depend on the size and where, but you'll find something. I think even in Lisbon, you can probably find in certain neighborhoods. The $1,600 will get you a long way.
The most expensive market, in fact, Lisbon would be at the high end of the market, but maybe even more costly would be Cascais, which is kind of the Newport Beach of Portugal, as friends who live there have explained. And renting there might even be more expensive than Lisbon, maybe.
Possibly.
But still, €1,600 for Portugal. is a very big budget, which gives you an idea of how affordable overall Portugal is relative to the rest of Europe and the rest of the world. Patricia T. writes to say, we would like to spend some time, maybe 1 or 3 months, in Ireland. We are active older folks who bike, hike, canoe, explore, and love adventure. Where is the best place to start? We prefer to rent.
Yeah, almost anywhere, honestly. But if you were going to spend just a few months there and wanted a lot of activities, again, in normal times, I would recommend Galway. Dublin, of course, is the capital. Lots going on there, but it's going to be more expensive. Galway is a university town, and so there's lots of activities geared around the university kids, pubs, and Galway is a nice town just in general.
A nice harbor town. It's on the water, very historic, a very old town. Lots of antique shops, old bookstores, the kinds of things that we really enjoy. And a great energy, as Lee says, because it is a university city. So there are lots of students, and that makes for a lively and I think very enjoyable, vibrant place to be.
Well, and much will depend on if you want to drive around Ireland while you're there or not. In Galway and Dublin as well, you can get away without having a car for your few months there. But if you're going to be in a house outside of a town or a city, then you're going to want a car. So it just depends on how you want to plan your trip.
Right. And I'll put in a plug for our favorite spot in Ireland because it's where we live, Waterford. And one point I'll make is that while Galway is a nicer city, honestly, than Waterford and more of a city, it's on the west coast where the weather is a bit harsher than on the east coast. Waterford is said to have some of the mildest, least wet weather in the country. It's very relative. It's still very wet in Waterford. David D. wants to know what would be my medical insurance options in the Algarve, Portugal.
So the interesting thing about getting residency in Portugal, they require you to have medical health insurance when you apply. So you're going to have to get an international policy of some sort. That could be a 1-year travel policy, which one of the insurance groups that we work with offers. So that will get you the application and be able to get residency. Once you have residency, you can go to the public healthcare system as if you had always been in Portugal. So it's getting the residency first. So the international health insurance policies can be relatively inexpensive, especially if you exclude the U.S. from the coverage. The travel health insurance policies for up to 365 days or 360 days can be something to get you through the initial application process.
Okay. Jean S. writes, Kathleen and Leif, I met you in Panama about 5 years ago, and I invested in the mango plantation that you've written about. I created a Nevis LLC to hold the property, but because of local Hawaii investment account restrictions, I had the proceeds deposited into my personal checking account. Now I've gotten a notice about Nevis requiring a simplified tax return. I'm wondering if I should just dissolve the LLC. I'm wondering what you have heard about this tax return. What do you think? We have, in fact, heard about this.
Right. So Nevis, like all of the tax havens, to use that term broadly, are trying to, I don't know what the right word is. The OECD is putting pressure on them to have more transparency. And so this is their effort for that. Panama did it a few years ago. BVI has done something as well. So now Nevis has come up with this, what was it called, a simplified tax return, an STR. And I have Nevis entities. I've received a notification from my registered agent there. They're basically saying that what has been written so far in the law is too vague and too broad, and they're working to make it a little more condensed and streamlined. But if it plays out like it did in Panama and the BVI, effectively what happened in Panama, the registered agent said, as long as you've got, and we have active companies in Panama, as long as you have I know where to go to get the financial statements. Should the government come and knock on the registered agent's door, it's fine. So he hasn't actually even required us to send those to him so that he has them on file in his office. In the case of the BVI, where I also have a company, there's a questionnaire that for the company that says, are you doing any activity in BVI? No. Where are you doing activity? Panama is the company taxable in Panama? Yes. And that was the end of it, and there's no further form. So I'm sure Nevis will fall somewhere between there. But to go back to your question, which is, should you just let the LLC drop or not? And that actually depends on whether you have taken title to your mango plantation yet or not. If you have, it's titled in the name of the LLC, and changing the registration of the title to your name, there'll be transfer taxes and some other expenses. So may not be worth the cost to do that. So you want to take that into consideration, and because I think that the STR forms are going to be minimal. Basically, you tell Nevis that the LLC owns a farmland in Panama, and that it's falls under Panama's tax jurisdiction, and that should be the end of it.
Wait, is this an annual filing? These forms?
It's so new. Yes, it probably is an annual filing, but it's not totally been promulgated.
And this question raises another point that's worth drawing out, which you just addressed, but to make it generally, which is it's important to think through how you're going to take title to a piece of property when you buy it overseas, because transferring title is costly.
Right. It's not like the U.S. where you can do a quick claim deed for $75. There's transfer taxes in most countries, so you want to make sure you get the titling right in the first place, which this person did. But then Nevis has slightly changed the rules, but I don't think they're going to be so onerous that it's worth dropping the LLC.
Okay, Carl K. writes, any idea? Oh, this is a great, relevant, timely question that I bet is on a lot of people's minds, including ours. Any idea when the ban for EU travel for U.S. citizens will be lifted?
Yeah, it's fairly simple. When the U.S. stops having more cases of COVID than any given European country. So gets into the whole, what do you think about the COVID quarantines and things like that? This thing's with us for a while. It's not going away. And so it's anybody's guess in how countries are going to react. It's one reason, and I've been saying this for 20 years, to have a backup plan, to have options. Why Kathleen and I have multiple citizenships and residencies, so that we can. The country has to let us back in if you're a citizen. Although some countries actually did even keep citizens out for a while. Colombia and Panama were two of them.
But I think the situation in Europe in general is very much still up in the air, and so there is no answer to this question.
And the rules are changing every 2 weeks. They're revisiting what's going on in each country every 2 weeks. So Ireland, for example, is updating their list of countries that are allowed to enter without a 14-day quarantine. Right now, you can go to Ireland, but you have to quarantine for 14 days. So if you're going for a 2-week trip, you're stuck in your hotel for 2 weeks. It's not really much of a vacation. And so you have to just look at the rules country by country. Panama is starting to open up, but they're going to have a quarantine as well. And a lot of countries are requiring the active COVID test in advance of getting on the plane. So the systems have to be in place to be able to get those quickly enough. Otherwise, if it takes more than 48 hours to get that test, it's pointless, because that's the timeline that they require. Right.
So we are right now in the United States, and when we leave here in, say, a month or 6 weeks or so, we're right now thinking we're intending to go back to Ireland, and then work our way from there.
We'll have to see what the rules are at that point.
All right. Nancy M. says, Kathleen, I attended a workshop of yours several years ago, and it really got me moving. I bought a house in Ireland. My friend bought a traditional cottage and then inherited one. That's pretty cool. We have both been trying to figure out what the procedure is to be able to stay an extended time, 5 or 6 months, instead of the 3 months allowed to tourists. Ideally, we would even like to be able to stay full time. Could you explain what our options are?
Yeah, Ireland changed their residency options for what was called person of means, which included retirees. A few years ago, effectively, Ireland doesn't want new people. So the stamp 0 requires showing 50,000 euros of income per person. So a couple has to show 100,000 euros, which is, of course, ridiculous for a retired person, and also unnecessary to live in Ireland.
Right.
Beyond that, they also have to show that you have a place to live. So owning the house should help an application. But I haven't heard of anybody getting in without showing that 50,000 euros of income. So then your options are, as you said, 3 months at a time, and you can come and go. So you can go in. Ireland isn't part of the Schengen zone, so you could go to Ireland, spend your 3 months there, hop on a plane, and go to the EU and spend a week there on vacation, and then come back for another 3 months in Ireland. And you'll probably be able to get away with that once, and then have to come back to the U.S. for 6 months before you start over again. But keep looking and keep asking when you're in Ireland. Maybe go visit the local immigration officer where your house is. It's really up to them to say, whether they'll approve you or not. So if you get to know an immigration officer and he understands you own a house and you have the means to support yourself, you might get lucky. But again, I haven't heard of anybody who's been able to bypass that.
But the thing is, Ireland is a place where that's possible. The immigration is handled by the Gardaí, the police officers, and through the police station.
Right. And last we knew it was handled at the local level, although I do think something switched to only being taken care of out of Dublin. So,
so that makes it a little more complicated.
Yeah.
But as Leif says, keep checking, because these rules change all the time, not just for Ireland, but in general. Immigration policy to do with residency, restrictions, requirements change all the time. Especially now in this time of COVID, a number of countries are introducing new, easier residency options to try to attract residents, retirees, et cetera, and especially long-distance workers, digital nomads, remote workers, because of lost tourism income. We're going to call it a wrap there for right now for part 1 of our Ask Leif Anything 2-part podcast series. We'll be back again next week, trying again to stump Leif with a bunch of questions. Keep them coming. Keep sending them in. We'll keep doing our best to answer them. Wherever you are in the world, we hope you're safe and well, and we hope we're all able to get out there traveling again soon. Meantime, we'll stay in touch this way. Take care. Thank you for listening.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode of our Live and Invest Overseas podcast. For more, please visit liveandinvestoverseas.com/podcast, where you'll find lots more information and resources to help you live better and retire well overseas.